Hey everyone, Eric Hayden here in the garden. Still doing our deadheading in the yard itself. You can see this one here, Affirm, looking really good. This is one that did not look good before the deadheading. A lot of these petals with Affirm, it's a high petal count, so it just balls up like this when it gets wet and just looks bad, and that can promote botrytis in the garden. The point of today's quick video is what else should you be doing when you deadhead. We mentioned that you're removing the old blooms, but there is some light maintenance you can do in the yard. First thing, if you have any suckers, you can remove those. I let some of these grow longer because I'm trying to root some of them, but this is Fortuniana. You can look, the plant is signature, but notice how all the leaves are alike. This is new growth, but look how this just stands out like a sore thumb. So this is a sucker. This is something that it will take energy from the plant itself. It is something that, let's see if I can get in here, it comes below the graft itself. Where the plant is grafted, below that graft will be where the sucker will emanate. And you can usually tell because it looks totally different. And like I said, I let these grow a little bit because I'm trying to root them. But the earlier you get these, the less likely they are to take over. If you were to not remove those, it could eventually take over. A little less likely with multiflora. You can see it with Dr. Huey sometimes. Those are rootstocks that are common in the United States. These roses were grafted at K&M roses down in Mississippi. And they can get suckers quite often on them. So that's one maintenance item you can do in the garden. As you deadhead, it's a good time to just kind of look at your roses and see if there's anything you need to do. The other thing you can do is stake some up. These fell over in some wind that we had the other day. So as I go around deadheading, I will look to see what needs to be staked, get rid of any suckers. And the last thing, any unwanted growth. So these examples here I pulled out. If you have any dead canes at any time during the season, you can get rid of those. So healthy leaves here, good cane here, but you can see the top of this cane has died back. And you want to go below the dieback, below where it turns yellow, and pretty far down. You want to leave a nice margin of healthy wood. You don't want to cut it right here, right where it goes from dead to good wood, because it may be dead on the inside, and you won't really know until you open that up. So anything dead, here's another example of some dead canes just to cut away. Any cross canes, any light maintenance will help. And then we were talking about the 3 versus 5 leaves, and just taking the blooms off is all you need to do. Sometimes it can get a little confusing when you have this cluster or spray of blooms. So this is an old cane with lots of blooms on it, and you have to come pretty far down to prune. So what I like to do with these clusters of blooms is don't prune on any of the canes that produce a flower. Come down to the main cane, and then whatever your first set of either 3 or 5 leaves is, that's where you prune. So you're taking off a pretty significant chunk of the bush there. But it's, when you have a cluster of blooms like that, I found it best just to go down to wherever the main cane is and then prune that out. So that's it. It's a pretty quick video. Since I'm down on the ground, I'll show you this new cane coming out of Affirm. That's what you're looking for, new growth on the bushes as we get into the early part of summer and just kind of keeping things clean. So we'll keep pruning and deadheading in the garden, but the point of today's video was to mention, since you're in the garden, since you're already with the roses, certainly when you see things like this. Now this is a big sucker. Prune those out, clean up your bushes. You've got anything that is already dead, go ahead and remove it. It's just easier to do on a bush by bush basis instead of waiting for it to progress down the cane, the death itself, perhaps killing the whole thing, or just taking out other canes on its way. As I end this video, just one little science experiment. All the roses have been pruned in the yard this year, except the 2 on the end. I wanted to see what would happen. Mr. Lincoln has caught up. That was pruned. In the back, Alina, not quite as tall now because it got knocked down a little bit in the wind. I'm gonna have to stake that up. But this was not pruned. It lost a lot of leaves because of some black spot that got ahead of myself. But look at all that purple growth in there. That's all new growth. So it'll come back. But this monstrosity is Yolande de Aragon. That's easily the tallest rose I've had since I've been growing roses. And a lot of it is because I didn't prune it. I just want to see how tall this thing can get. It primarily blooms in the spring. We will get a flush in the fall if I prune it back a little bit, so I may do that. But this is I'm 6 feet tall, and this is probably 7.5. I can't touch the top, so it's pretty big. I'm just kind of curious. Its own root, so it's not grafted. I took a cutting from my father's garden. The original bush came from Palatine roses. I had one in New York. I'm not a huge garden rose fan, old garden rose, because the form, I like a hybrid tea form. My son likes it. Super fragrant. I rooted it a couple years ago, and you can tell that it is doing fantastic. So you don't always have to have a grafted rose to do well. Certain varieties just grow well regardless of what's going on. And you know, these Mr. Lincolns and these other roses are not short, but in comparison, they look short. It looks like a basketball player rose right there. Have a good one. As always, comment below. I'll last leave you with our next buds that are coming. This is on Pope John Paul II. Highly recommend this rose. It looks like it has decent disease resistance, and a lot of flowers come with it. They do bloom in sprays, so you get these clusters of blooms, and it is a white rose that has a citrusy fragrance to it. So that is one that you can get commercially available. Don't mind the deadheading we have to do. Despite that, it has come back, and that's why I recommend it. This has not been touched since the blooms of the spring, and despite not deadheading, very robust growth, and the next set of blooms are coming. Have a good one, everyone.